Shut up and sit down.
Hello and welcome. My name is Percy. On tonight's episode of The Art of the Rebuild, like many NBA teams, we're going to be looking ahead at the 2020 offseason. Specifically, we're going to talk about draft night, who should be targeting who at the top of the lottery, and a little bit about what trades could be happening. First, let's talk about the Warriors. As the standings hold right now, the Warriors would have the top odds in the lottery. Obviously, things could change with Steph Curry returning to the lineup, but let's pretend that they do get this top selection and they decide to keep it, which I don't know is going to happen. I think there's a high chance they trade out of that pick to add some depth to their team. But if they do keep it, you got to be looking at fit. The reason that I think the Warriors have to be looking at fit for a top prospect is because, unlike most of the other teams, they are likely going to be contending, possibly for a championship, next season. Should Curry and Klay stay healthy, I don't think they want to select one of the top two guards like Anthony Edwards or LaMelo Ball, because not only are they going to be playing behind Curry and Klay, but they're also more long-term projects. They're going to take longer to develop. Right now, Curry and Klay are in their primes. Draymond Green is a little older, but he is still an effective player. You want a player that can contribute to this core right now, and I think that guy is Deni Avdija. Deni Avdija is being talked about as one of the guys with the highest floor in the draft. I'm not so sure this guy doesn't also have the highest ceiling. Maturity is way beyond his age. His defensive IQ is better than people are giving him credit for. He's a very versatile power forward, which would fit absolutely perfectly in the Golden State offense. This guy can pass the ball, he can shoot the ball, and he's actually becoming more of an offensive threat too. Before, he was more of a spot-up shooter. He played off of some of the better players on his team. Lately, he's becoming a top option for them. So I think this guy could actually contribute to a championship team in his first couple seasons in the NBA, which is why I think the Warriors should be looking at him as a possible selection on draft night, even at number 1 overall. Now let's talk about the Atlanta Hawks. They are also in a little bit of a tough spot because they already have their backcourt of the future somewhat in place. Trae Young is obviously their point guard, and Kevin Huerter has proven to be a very good shooting guard to put next to him. Again, this is a draft that has 2 guards at the top. Early mock drafts this season suggested that they might look at a guy like James Wiseman, but now they just traded for Clint Capella. They're going to be paying him for a couple years now, so they have to look at a player who fits better with the core they have in place. I think Anthony Edwards is the only one that is worth selecting this high that might be able to work. The only worry that I have with Anthony Edwards is that watching him play, he's not really the kind of player that knows how to get involved in the offense off ball. He's going to need a lot of coaching if he's going to play with a guy like Trae Young, because with Anthony Edwards, it's either hero ball or it's standing around watching his teammates play. So to put him next to Trae Young would be a little bit of a risk because there's the chance that he can't play with another ball-dominant guard, because Anthony Edwards is first and foremost a shot creator. He is a playmaker. He needs the ball in his hands to be effective, and he's a very good player with the ball in his hands at most times. But given the Hawks' situation, you have to hope that Anthony Edwards can learn to play along a ball-dominant guard like Trae Young. The Cavs are in a similarly tough situation because they also sort of have a backcourt of the future. The only problem is that Darius Garland and Colin Sexton probably should not be their backcourt of the future. You just can't have 2 ball-dominant guys like that playing off each other. And of course, after already spending so much draft capital on point guards, they face some tough decisions, considering this draft is guard heavy. About a month ago, you might have looked at a guy like James Wiseman to be a possibility for this team because he's got a very high ceiling with his size and athleticism. You could give that backcourt pairing a little bit more time to try to learn to play together, but now that they've traded for Andre Drummond, they've put themselves in an even tougher position. What I would hope they might try to do is finally look to trade Kevin Love on draft night. Kevin Love deserves better. There's no other way to put it. That saga has got to end. He's been in trade talks for years and years. A deal has never been pulled off. I can only hope, for his sake, for the Cavs' sake, for all NBA fans' sakes, Kevin Love gets traded on draft night. And that leads to my final discussion, which is what other players might be trade night possibilities. The Warriors are going to be very active in trade talks, especially if they get that top pick. I would highly expect them to look to trade down, try to add some other rotation pieces while also selecting a prospect, but there is also one other interesting thing that could happen. If the Milwaukee Bucks collapse in the playoffs, there is a chance that Giannis could force their hand. He has said before that he wants to stay with the Milwaukee Bucks as long as he thinks he can win a championship there. If they fall short, And I mean, even not making the finals, I think, would be enough to make Giannis question re-signing in free agency. The Bucks may be forced to look to add as much value for him as possible. I don't see the Bucks trading him unless he explicitly asks for one, but the Warriors could be the team to try to make that jump with the top pick. The only problem for the Warriors is that this isn't an especially strong draft. If there was a prospect like Zion Williamson last year in this upcoming draft, I would fully expect the Warriors to be kicking the tires on Giannis on draft night. Beyond that, I think Buddy Hield is a guy to watch. His situation in Sacramento has clearly deteriorated, and a report came out recently that he may be asking for a trade sometime soon. Not only did he have a hard time agreeing on a contract this past offseason, but they also are going to have to pay Bogdan Bogdanović if they want to keep him. We've known for a little bit that Buddy Hield and Bogdan probably would not both be on the team for a long time. It seemed like they were going to let Bogdan go because he is going to demand money in free agency. But with this turmoil started now between Buddy Hield and the organization, I think there's a chance Buddy Hield gets traded on draft night and they do re-sign Bogdan Bogdanović. Harrison Barnes' deal is also a problem in re-signing Bogdanović, and he could even be a name that's explored on draft night as well. The absolute best player that I expect to even be talked about on draft night is Bradley Beal. I don't think that this draft offers enough top-level prospects for the Wizards to be willing to move off of him, but I think there is some teams that are going to be asking about him. Of course, Beal has said he wants to stay with the Wizards, and I'm sure the Wizards want to keep him. And if I am Washington, I'd much rather keep him because their offense has actually been very good this year. Rui Hachimura looks like a pretty solid player. You got role players like Thomas Bryant and Troy Brown Jr. coming alive, and if John Wall can come back and be even a positive impact on that team, that's a team that could be vying for a playoff spot in the East. So it makes sense for the Wizards to want to keep him. I'm not sure how it makes sense for Bradley Beal to want to stay on that team, but if he does not demand a trade, I think the Wizards will hang on to him. If he does, keep your eyes on draft night because I think there will be a lot of teams calling about him in June. Anyways, that's all for today's episode of The Art of the Rebuild. There is a lot more coming. Please stay tuned and have a great afternoon.